and welcome to Chit and Chat, a podcast all about encouraging others. Who needs encouragement? You? Well, we've got you covered. We reach out to musicians, comedians, and other organizations who are all about encouraging their communities. Help us spread the love by sharing this podcast. And now, here's your host of Chit and Chat, Jody Sheffield.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Chit and Chat. This podcast is all about encouragement, and I reach out to nonprofits, musicians, and comedians, whoever I can find that can come on here and share their story, struggles they've been through, and challenges they're facing. Everyone, I believe, has a story, and through each story, people have faced depression, anxiety, addictions of drugs and alcohol, perhaps, were on the streets for a number of years. People who were lost physically, mentally, or even spiritually. And through these stories, they have found hope, patience, kindness, and encouragement. My guest today, Darrell Dominic, was born and raised in Oklahoma City. He currently lives here in the Kitsap County area. Has been known as a musician, a musical artist in our community for quite some time. And he is now an investor and content creator for his own podcast and YouTube channel called The Money Level Show, where he focuses on trends and geopolitics and how it affects money and investments. It is my honor today to have on Darrell Dominic, aka Smiley D, or now Darrell Dominic, on Chit Chat. Welcome to Chit Chat, a podcast of encouraging one another.
Today I'm excited to have on, do a face-to-face podcast interview in his own backyard. It's my honor to have on local musician from Kitsap County, Darrell Dominic. Today Darrell will be sharing a little bit about his story, and my goal for our podcast is to share encouragement and encouraging words, whoever we can help that can be facing some hard times. Hello, Darrell. How are you, sir?
Hey, I'm doing well, man. Blessed by the best.
I think it's taking out time of your busy schedule to be doing a face-to-face. This is the first for me, so it's good to see someone instead of going over the phone.
Yeah, I love content creation and being able to share, my story, hear other people's story, and how we can help each other grow, how we can help each other, move throughout life.
In your early years, you were creating songs that were based from growing off the streets. What were a few songs that you wrote while on the streets that you kind of gone, those are my street songs back in the days?
Yeah, I had songs like The Streets Is Me. That was one of them. That was kind of just like, my identity was like, the streets and wanting to be, accepted by the streets, loved by the streets. The streets be loyal to me, but, all those things were like, false hopes, because the streets ain't loyal. The streets, don't love you.
True that.
And all those things. But, at that time, it was something that was really, something I was really involved in. And I felt like that's where my connection and my belonging was, sure. Even though it took me a while to realize, that wasn't the best for me. So
I kind of jumped ahead of myself. I have some icebreaker questions for you.
Yeah,
so that was just a little early the meal right there. So a few questions for you. If you could meet any three artists, musicians, for a few hours over a cup of coffee, whatever, pick their brains and kind of share some content or ideas, who would those three artists be?
Three artists. Let's see. I would say Lupe Fiasco. That's my favorite artist. He's very well knowledgeable in history, and you just hear it in the songs, like just everything he raps about. Like he just has so much a wealth of knowledge of a lot of different things, traveled the world, all those things, and so I really aspire to that. And even his styles, like how he can rap over hip hop beats, he can rap over rock beats, jazz beats.
Cool.
He's just so versatile. I just love that. So that would be my first. Second would be Jay-Z. I would like to meet Jay-Z just because Jay-Z is a business brain, and he saw beyond just music, and how he can, be able to set himself up to be, one of the wealthiest, African Americans, out alive, and and so just looking up to like that, like how you can branch out beyond just being in music, and like, okay, what's your longevity plan?
Right, yeah.
And so like a lot of times musicians don't think about that. So that would be my second. And then I would say, as far as the next one would probably be Kendrick Lamar. I really like Kendrick Lamar. I like his styles and the things he talks about. Even when he talks about faith and God, and I mean he's had so many songs, especially when he was underground, about his faith in God and Christ and everything, and just being able to explore that more with him, and be able to talk more with them on those things. And so,
yeah, be cool.
So those are probably my top three.
All right. You got an extra one?
I would say I got another one.
All right.
I would say Eminem.
Okay.
I have to meet Eminem. I watched one of his documentaries. Just like, this guy is just so influential, especially to my childhood and everything. He was funny. He was, he was very controversial and everything. And I just like he's just super talented. Just like how his rhyme patterns and everything is just like over my head sometimes. Like, how is he compiling all this together to make sense? And so Eminem would be one of them as well. So yeah.
Who has inspired you along your journey, perhaps, that pushed you not to quit, not to give up, all the hooplas kind of pushing you to keep going and not to stop?
Yeah, I would say first it would be my mom's. She was praying for me when I was in the streets. She was praying for me when, I was lost. And she always knew that I would just come back. Come back to know who God is and come back to the faith and everything. So she's definitely inspired me along the way and help uplifted me. And so that's from an early age till it's still happening today. So she's probably been the most.
Your mom's still local?
No, she's actually in Phoenix.
Okay. Warmer climate.
Yeah. So she's out there. She used to live up here. We're originally from Oklahoma City, but I live in Washington. She's over in Phoenix. So,
okay.
Yeah.
What is your dream job? If you could stop and just do one thing, and God said, I want you to do this, what would that be?
Dream job. I would say probably a couple years ago it would have probably been to do music, full time. But now probably I think I'm more into the podcast and content creation and just having that broad scope of being able to like incorporate all these things. I feel like the days of just doing music is over. Like people want to see inside your life. People want to see how you think, how do you move throughout society and stuff. And a lot of stars were, almost untouchable, back in the day. But now they're having to do reality television. They're having to post the stories, do more Instagram lives. Like, people want to see like just how these people live their lives, And and I think just being able to create content such as podcasts and explore different topics and be able to talk, speak your truth and all those different things. And I think that's something that I would like to do full time, that, and be able to, do motivational speeches and such like that. So
yeah, that's awesome. I'm giving you and your wife 2 tickets to go anywhere in the world for a, say, 2-week vacation. Where are you guys going?
Oh, anywhere in the world. I think a few times we've talked about, at least I've talked about, South Africa, being able to see, some of the animals, giraffes, lions and things like that, like just be able to experience and see them up close or whatnot. Hopefully the tour bus doesn't break down or something, but that's kind of like one of the places that I would like to go.
Oh, yeah.
And that's one of the places.
So for those listening, who is Darrell Dominic?
Mm-hmm.
You were Smiley D years ago. Now you rebranded a little bit. We'll discuss that later.
Mm-hmm.
But get a little brief bio on who Darrell Dominic is for those who don't know who you are.
Yeah. So I've been doing hip hop for a long time. My name formerly was Smiley D. I went through a whole rebranding and name change back in 2019. Just to offer my fans just more consistent quality across the board, and to be able to evolve as an artist and as a person, and being able to, be known by a name that, could be timeless because it's my actual name, versus like Smiley. It's like, oh, if I'm 60 years old dropping a rap song, like I don't know if I want to be called Smiley. I might be grumpy at that
Grumpy,
time.
there you go. Yeah. Grumpy D.
So, and Smiley D was like a street name too. So it was just like, it was good to like just evolve from that. So, me, I do music still under Darrell Dominic. I also do a podcast called The Money Level Show, where I, mostly YouTube channel, where I speak about finance and investing, and that's been like probably the more prominent side of me since the pandemic started. It's just I've consumed a lot of knowledge on just investing, finance, macroeconomics, how politics affect people like us, with policies that are passed, and all those different things, and just how it affects investments in general. And so I watch the markets that way, and that's kind of like how I watch my investments, and looking towards the future, and just being like, hey, I want to be able to, as long as God has us here, like it's my responsibility to be able to, provide for my kids, teach my kids the way, and leave them something, if I can. And
teaching the right way, not the way that the world or society wants us to teach our kids. Yeah, which is, I would say, ass backwards. Yeah, it really is. Mm-hmm. God's got us to be good fathers and good parents. Yeah, and to teach our kids and our grandkids. That's pretty crucial and important in today's society.
Yeah, for sure. And just thinking about like even in terms of like financial things, like the world has taught us how the opposite of how we should teach our kids. Like, we've taught our kids a lot of consume more than you produce, or consume more than you need to.
Credit scores and credit cards.
Yeah.
And, oh my goodness.
And so so like we're, a very consumption based nation that's based off of like, have shifted towards being based off of, our identity being in our materials or how we look and things like that. When the wealthiest people, they'll wear T-shirts from Goodwill, and like and drive a beater car to get point A to B, things like that. So, I just think that, we've been taught we've been passed down to us, and we've taught our kids the wrong way to be able to do that. So just like correcting that and like teaching my kids about like, okay, money is a tool. Like how do you give to others? Mm-hmm. How do you be in a position to bless someone else's ministry? How do you get yourself in a position to where you can take care of your family during hard times? By being responsible, and being a good steward of what God has given you. So those are some things I'm passionate about.
You walked the path, living on the streets and trying to find your way towards manhood. Mm-hmm. I read that in a couple of interviews you did. How difficult was that?
Yeah, it's very difficult. It's almost like that saying, looking for love in the wrong places. And I think a lot of it now, I process it now, is just that, growing up with a single mother, like, and not having that father figure in the home. When you get like a certain age, your teenage years, then you start to like look to like, okay, well, what does manhood look like? And then you're trying to find like, who can I grab onto, for this idea of manhood? If there's no stepfather, there's no mentor in the role, there's no, and your father isn't necessarily in that role either. So, so I looked to the streets, and that was how I developed, kind of a mentality of like a street mentality, of living, life with a lot of risks, risks that can get you into prison, risks that can you can end up dead, and things like that. So that journey towards manhood was very crucial in those teenage years. I mean, even now, like seeing with my own son, like he grew up a mama's boy, but now he's like getting to the teenage years. He's like, I'm like, okay, things are kind of shifting because he's not like listening to his mom as much as he was before. And like now it's like taking my influence to like really impact him, more. So, and me and his mom, we've been split up and stuff, so we're in the different households. But I'm starting to see that trend happening now.
Just being consistent as a dad, just be the best you can and being consistent.
Yep.
And not waver on your rules or whatever. I think it's pretty crucial too. The kids know structure.
Yep.
So
yeah, I think, and also like it's kind of like the explanation of things. Like I think especially like me growing up, like you don't question why we believe in God. You don't question why this or why that. You just know it's not good for you.
Yep.
And I think that was kind of a problem because you should question things. You should be able to think logically, like, and actually come up with probabilities for what's going to happen, what could happen in your situation if you do X, Y, and Z. And so and so now I'm at this point, even with my own son, where it's like he's where we're having these conversations that are like, hey, like, okay, so you did X, okay, so what are the consequences for X? What are the potential consequences? What are the benefits? What are the consequences? I want you to actually think this through. And so those are like some of the things like I'm working with my son on, and it's like kind of going deeper into like, thinking before you act, knowing the probabilities, knowing the consequences, knowing the risks, knowing all these things, and having a conscience before you just jump and just do something,
right?
And so those are some of the things like we're working on.
Do you remember the first song you wrote, what it was and where it was when you first started writing? What song was that when you first started? You remember your first song you wrote?
First song I wrote, I honestly don't remember the name. I was probably like 12 years old at that time. My mom's friend, my mom's friend's son, he was a rapper. So I told him I wanted to rap. And so he pretty much, what he did was I started writing lyrics and stuff. And I told him that I rap. And he said, oh, you rap? And so he got on the song with me. And we rapped on this beat. We recorded it on a cassette. Okay. I wish I still had it, but I don't even remember what I was rapping about.
Cassettes. People listening now probably don't know what a cassette is.
Yeah. So that was right before we started burning to CDs. Okay. So you're transitioning from cassettes to CDs, and then we came MP3s later. So
back in my days, we could put the cassette in and record off the radio.
Yeah,
that was a few years ago.
yeah, definitely.
Did you I don't know if you said it or not in your interviews, but did you live on the streets for a while, or you were just kind of on off the streets for a little while?
Not necessarily on the streets, like as far as like homelessness or anything.
Just kind of running on the streets, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just pretty much running the streets and things like that.
How long was that?
That was probably a good 5-6 years, and that was pretty much like, I was a hustler, so it was like, okay, well, I'm gonna hustle my way and make sure I'm not homeless, and so that was kind of my mentality, and that was just how I survived too, where it's like, okay, well, I don't want to live on the streets, so I'm going to get out here and figure out a way to get it, and so I've never lived on the streets and was homeless or anything.
Who was someone who talked to you about Jesus and kind of about faith and really kind of got you thinking, this is not the best way, I'm living, that's another way for me to, live right? Yeah.
Honestly, I would say, obviously my mom's, she raised us in church and everything, but when I was in the streets, I would say I had a friend named Isaac who, he was a Christian rapper, and he was also a videographer, so he would shoot music videos for me, and he ministered to me during those music videos.
Oh.
And like, you know, it got to the point where I was just like, dude, I'm not ready. I know what it takes to walk this life. Like, I'm not ready for it. You know, I'm not ready to surrender.
The words kind of suck in, though, I'm sure, in your mind.
Yeah, and I mean, ironically, you know, he's not a believer anymore. He's I don't know if he's atheist or what, but he definitely was there for me. I mean, even when there's times where, you know, I felt like darkness in my soul, or like, you know, felt like I was being spiritually oppressed.
Okay.
You know, and even when I felt those times, I would reach out to him, and he'd be like, "Call out to Jesus, man, call out to Jesus," and I wouldn't respond to him, you know, because it's just like I was battling within myself, like, you know, I know what it takes to some degree to walk this life, and having to lay down your life, lay down your dreams, lay down your goals, you know, things that you've wanted to do since you was a kid, maybe, you know, and I just wasn't ready for it. And so, like, but he was one that definitely played a role in my life during that time.
You and I are total opposites. You know, I grew up in church. I didn't have the hard life, you know, and God knew today we'd come together and share encouragement to people who were struggling, who've been through hard times, that God can get them out of the pits and the valleys and get them on the right path. And so I really believe that, you know, our paths cross for a reason today.
Yeah, and I think it's also like, I know, like, even in my life, like, it's, you know, like working in the fields I work in, like, you know, full time, you know, I was a juvenile probation officer for a while. Now I work in tribal child welfare. So it's like, you know, working in these social work fields, like, I've seen kids that have harder lives than me, than I had, you know, as a kid. Yeah, like, I had some struggles. My mom, single mom, working, you know, trying to provide for 5 kids, you know, all that stuff, like, struggles, living in the hood and everything. But she still, like, kept me away from the gangs. Like, she, you know, and and you know, when I look back at that, it's like, okay, yeah, I had it hard, but, like, you know, sometimes I'm running across kids and I'm like, man, like, you know, your mom was doing this, my mom wouldn't do that, you know, like, and just, like, you know, seeing, like, sometimes people got it harder. And so, like, you know, for me, like, you know, I acknowledge, like, my upbringing in church, but I was more, you know, hard-headed and not wanting to follow the way, even though the way was presented in front of me. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Can you relate to kids a little? I'm sure you can, and what you've gone through, to kids today, going, hey, man, this is not the life that's for you. You know, God's got a plan for you. You know, is it help that you had that background you have to help these kids who are struggling?
Yeah, I think it makes our connection more organic, for sure. I mean, and just how I communicate and connect with them. But ultimately, you know, I really, I'm very into the point of, like, you know, letting them know that they have to make the choice.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And like, you see the risk, you see X, Y, and Z, you see this, you see that going on in your life. Like, this is another way, you know. So it's been impactful in that way, you know, and even being able to talk to kids about God that don't really know what they believe,
Right.
you know, and just being there with them, being able to hear them out, being able to share, you know, my thoughts, or share. Sometimes it ends up in debates. Sometimes we debate stuff, you know. So it's.
I came across a quote you said, "Your purpose is to share your story of how faith of God brought you through all the struggle you faced."
Yep.
You know, that's still true today, huh?
Yes, indeed.
I watched several of your videos preparing for your interview, a lot of your songs, and what are some of the coolest locations of the videos you did at?
Let's see. Probably some of the coolest locations. I really like the locations where you technically not supposed to be at. So, like, the no trespassing locations.
Okay.
Those are pretty fun. I remember we shot a video in Everett, and we had this. It was just an abandoned apartment complex. It was just everything that I wanted in a video. And you know, that was kind of like you know, one of those things. And it was also a few other places was these older buildings. Like, I've shot a video in St. Louis, And one of the youth centers that my friend worked out, they just had floors and floors of just, old like classrooms, old pianos around, and everything. And it was just so much stuff that you could do. Same thing for another location in Seattle that I was able to film at. Okay. So I really like those places that it's hard to access, and it doesn't look, like usually artists.
Kind of vintage, kind of worn down a little bit, or?
Yeah, vintage, worn down, and just, I mean, I think we shot a video in Tampa. It's this abandoned warehouse just sitting there, and we just slid through the door, and we're like, man, they got like the crane chains, and they got this, they got that. Like it was amazing,
nice.
So,
nice.
So I really like those places where you're technically not supposed to be.
So it's good to have Rain. I think I met you around 2011, and when you were Smiley D, you mentioned about rebranding. What did that mean to you when you took that step of rebranding yourself to a different, a newer Darrell, I guess, with newer ideas and fresher ideas and kind of content that's more about faith-based, possibly, or was that hard for you?
It wasn't hard. It was just more. I felt like it was what I needed, to get a jump start and everything, because I felt like I was plateauing a lot as Smiley D, like you had your heights and you had your lows and everything, and then when I rebranded it, just like I did, some songs with some bigger name artists in the Christian hip hop community, and it was like a quick jump start, and it's like, I'm like, okay, yeah, now a lot of people getting to know me as Darrell Dominic, and being able to reach people more, and I even took it a different level with as far as business, like being able to track data, being able to gain access to my fans outside of social media, because you're pretty much building your house on someone else's land, and if
Did you get a lot of encouragement during that process?
Yeah, I had mentorship from some bigger artists, like one artist, Thizzle. He's a good friend of mine. He was mentoring me and helping me through the process, and he's had a lot of success and everything, and so it was kind of like, he said it, and it was like, okay, well, you actually have credibility, so I'm actually going to listen to what you're saying and absorb it. And
that's a Joe Smith on the street.
Yeah, for sure. So that
you have good cred, I'll listen to you.
Yeah, exactly.
So you mentioned you married, have kids, right?
Yep.
So their ages?
Yep, so I have a son, he's 12, a daughter who's 4, and then we have one on the way due in October. So
congrats.
Thank you.
Your son rapping at all? Write songs yet?
I think he's tried a couple times, but not seriously that I know of. Yeah.
You are a man of many hats. I was reading about you. You're a content creator. You have your own podcast. And most people don't know, we're brothers. We're brothers in Christ.
Yep.
So being a father and raising your kids and sharing the faith the best you can, I think that's our most important hat, is to do that. Of all the hats you have, juggling around, does life get too crazy sometimes? You gotta step back and go, I need to breathe a little bit. I'm juggling too many balls in the air. So it happens quite often, and normally it's a situation that forces me to sit down and kind of reevaluate what I'm thinking, what I'm doing, and where I'm allocating most of my time. I mean, as far as last month, I had a minor heart attack, and that was so that was kind of one of the ones. I mean, it was a small artery and stuff, but still, nonetheless, it's still concerning, and then it's like, okay, well, I need to start cutting some stuff out. I need to start, really just evaluating what I'm doing with my time, and not just, just throwing my time everywhere. And time's our most valuable asset, and as far as in this world, and what we do at that time is very important. And so I'm still trying to figure it out in a lot of ways, but I've definitely gotten to a place where I can just, relax, be able to reflect, meditate,
take care of the fam, be present with the family. That was a big one. And, it's been helpful.
So this podcast is all about encouraging people. And I mentioned to you as we started earlier, based off 1 Thessalonians 5:11. It says, encourage one another and lift each other up. Yeah. What words of encouragement would you have to someone who's struggling out there, who's kind of lost, either physically, mentally, or even spiritually, not sure where they're at or what to do? What words of encouragement would you give someone?
I would just say, mostly a question would be, what's most important to you? And you have to really assess that, because we're going to do in life what's most important to us. And so, that's kind of one of the questions I theme my actions around. It's okay, well, if I'm, spending more time, doing things for leisure as opposed to self-development or, growing in my faith or whatnot, then, self-development and growing in my faith may be important to me, but my actions are showing that me having fun or me spending my time on leisure is more important, So those are kind of some of the things that I really look at in terms of, in terms of life. And for people that's struggling, that could look like, struggling with addiction. Obviously addiction has, its medical components to it, where it's, where it can be affect you physically, how you think, how you, altering your brain, all those types of things. But it's also one of those things where a lot of people don't want to be in that position, and it's okay, well, at some point we do have to, exercise some form of, responsibility, or our actions,
right.
And act on what's most important to us. And so, and that could be taking a step in this direction, taking a small step. It could be taking a big step, whatever that looks like, what is most important to you. So, if God is most important to us, then, we should be spending time with God. We should be, teaching our family about God, all those different things. So, really asking yourself what's most important to you and acting on that. So,
not having a Bible app on our phones, we can't say, "Oh, I ain't got a Bible." It's with you all the time.
Yeah, for sure.
I love doing I do a daily devotion on the YouVersion Bible app, and I had a good going. I had 380 days going. And I forgot about it. I missed it. I just all over again. I'm like, oh man, I had a good streak going. My day, it was a repetition every morning. Read a daily verse in the Bible and in Scripture. I'll go back to your singing for a second. We got any albums coming out soon, or some songs, some songs or albums coming out you want to share about?
Yeah, so I just released a single called No Love. I released that in February. That's featuring V. Rose, who is a well-known singer. And then I also just released an EP on March 31st called Freedom Mentality. And that is actually available on Spotify and all the streaming platforms and everything. So those are the most recent things that I've released, and got some things I'm working in the background too. So
saw your Catch-22, right? I saw that one in the courthouse. I saw.
Yeah.
That was pretty. Just watching, for me, it's like a cinematic movie. And watching the story of that, it was like, wow. I never had gone through that issue before, but I could feel the agonizing pain that he was going through. Yeah, that was.
Oof. That was
chills.
Yeah, and that was under Smiley D. But that was that song was I have my wife and my daughter in the video. Okay, but that song was just like, it was things that I faced. We're all faced with catch-22s at some point. Especially when we're trying to do what's right and get ahead. And I think that those trials are made to make us stronger, and I feel like they made me stronger for sure.
All right.
But just being able to acknowledge, like, hey, there are people out there trying. Everybody isn't just trying to get over on the system or trying to, get over in a way that just benefits them. Like, there's people that actually come out of those circumstances that are actually trying to do good and stuff. So,
can you tell me a little bit about Money Levels, about your podcast?
Yeah. So. I started at Money Levels, and it was in October of 2020. So the pandemic was the biggest lesson for me when I was Because when the pandemic hit, we had all the lockdowns, people losing their jobs.
Yeah.
And like for me, it was like I really started thinking like, man, I'm in I'm at the mercy of my job right now. Like, I don't have savings. I don't have a 6-month emergency fund. Like I don't want to be dependent on the government, to take care of my family.
Yeah.
Like me as a man, as a father, as a husband, that doesn't feel right for me. And so it really just drove me to like start picking up the books. And so at first I had the Rich Dad Poor Dad book sitting on my bookshelf for like 3 years, right?
Had to blow the dust off it.
Yeah. And so I just started consuming it, reading it, and I was like, oh wow. Started reading other books, going to YouTube, finding Robert Kiyosaki's channel. He was bringing on other people he interviewed on his podcast, and it just took me down a rabbit hole. And before you know it, I started just getting into like a lot of macroeconomics and what is the Federal Reserve doing? What is this policy doing? How does that policy affect us? How does this affect us? And how does the election affect us? What's going to happen after that? And it started driving like my my passion to like learn trends that happen in our country and also in the world, and how they ultimately will affect us.
Okay.
So and affect our money, affect our investments, affect everything. So
Yeah.
so like I just really look at that and see how like money is tied to a lot of things. I mean, when you look at divorce, like a lot of divorces are like tied to money, money issues. When you look at, us having to go work, by the sweat of our brow, it's tied to money.
Yeah.
And just even looking at the biblical approaches of like, the parable of the talents, and things of that nature, and using it as a tool, or Joseph of Arimathea, who buried Jesus because he had the wealth to be able to give Jesus a proper burial, and him being just staying on the cross was a form of disgrace to the Jews and everything. And so like just looking at all those different things, I was like, well, this is something that I want to help people be able to navigate through. And I mean, because it doesn't feel good whenever you have a lot of uncertainty financially, and if you're unable to take care of your family, like
It's most important. God says take care of our family, pray and simper.
Yeah.
And so it's pretty important for us being dads and husbands is that's our priority, teach them wisdom and faith and everything.
Yeah.
We're like our pastor to our own family. Pastors are responsible for their churches, and we're responsible for our families.
Yeah.
I think it's absolutely key in today's society.
Yep. And that was kind of like one of the things. It was interesting when I started learning a lot of this. Like even looking at the scripture, like you can't serve both God and money, and you look at like how like majority of us are going out to work for money. We're going out to serve money. Like like we have to have this, to be able to survive and stuff. So how can you turn that to a situation where money works for you?
Right.
That free you up time to be able to do what God has called you to do. To be able to be that full-time pastor, to be able to be the missionary or whatnot, because you're not having to worry about money.
Yeah.
So those are some of the things like that really impacted me.
And you said you do content creation too. What do you do on that side?
That's mostly just with the videos on YouTube,
Okay.
the interviews. I do whiteboard videos on different financial concepts and such, and so that's kind of my thing in content creation.
Nice. Well, it's an absolute honor today to have you on in your house, nice and quiet, pretty peaceful. And I truly was speaking of this last couple of weeks, talking to you. God had a plan for us to meet, and for you to share your story about encouraging people who are struggling, who have been gone through the last 2 years of that word, the pandemic, and people have struggled. And business has closed down, and restaurants have closed down. And I think for us, it's going to be strong for our families and be strong for our communities. Be a kind of, I'd say a rock, but it's a rock for people who are struggling, who don't know God and are kind of just lost. It's nice to help others find their way. So I appreciate your time and just sitting down with me today. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I appreciate you too. I gotta have you bring you on my channel too.
Oh yeah. Oh, tell us more about you too. You more how to get to follow you. You're just on YouTube, or you got a website?
Yeah. So people can check me out. Check out my music. Just Darrell Dominic, Darrell Dominic, Dominic. I'm on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and everything. And then if you want to learn more about finances and how to invest and all those different things, I speak a lot about that on my own podcast called The Money Level Show. As far as like the podcast episodes, those are mostly interviews featuring different investors and people that I interview on my channel. But as far as the different content, whiteboard videos and instructional videos and things of that nature, those are on my YouTube channel, The Money Level Show. So, yeah.
Appreciate it. Darrell, nice to meet you. Thanks, sir. Maybe you can do an intro for me one of these days. Encouragement.
Yeah, for sure.
This is Chit Chat with Darrell Dominic. Thanks for joining today.
What a great time I had today having a face-to-face with Darrell Dominic as he shared about where he has been, where he is at now, his music, who encouraged him along the way, his rebranding and what it meant to him. It was great doing a podcast face-to-face with someone instead of over the phone, and we just had a great conversation before and after we finished the podcast. And check out some of his music, and thank you for joining Chit and Chat. And it's always about encouraging others and getting their story, and my goal has always been to encourage one another and lift each other up. This is Chit Chat, encouraging one another. Have a great day. Until next time, this is Chit Chat.
This episode of Chit and Chat was brought to you by Veteran Roasters Coffee. Each purchase of Veteran Roasters Coffee helps employ one of tens of thousands of U.S. military veterans who have found hardship and difficulty upon transitioning home from service. They promise you the best beans from the best veteran-owned coffee company. Veterans helping veterans, one cup at a time. Use the code CHITCHAT25 to receive 25% off your purchase at veteranroasters.com.